Nathan joined me for the ride from Sauk City to Reedsburg. It was an absolute joy having a fun weekend together with him. Our intention was to take advantage of a stiff north wind and ride the route in reverse from Reedsburg to Baraboo to Sauk City, and then push further south to Madison where we would capture some footage of the city. But as I'll explain in a moment, it didn't work out that way. We got a late start hitting the road around 4 p.m., and that left us 4 hours till sundown to cover the 55 miles to Madison. The roads from Reedsburg to Baraboo were no problem. From there, Route 12 cuts a more or less straight line due south to Sauk City, and on Google Maps it looks like a smooth, wide shoulder. So we thought we'd give it a try. But when we got to the entrance ramp, there was a sign prohibiting bicycles. So we rerouted on locals and were immediately confronted with the particularly steep and unrelenting hills that help make the area around Baraboo and Wisconsin Dells a popular tourist destination. When we later once again crossed Route 12, there was no signage prohibiting bike traffic, so we jumped on. But within just a few minutes, we knew that wasn't going to work either. The shoulder had deep vertical grooves that made our bikes dangerously squirrely, and the traffic was unbearable. We stopped in Bluffview at the bottom of a massive, miles-long hill to regroup, and looking across the road, we saw what looked like a large abandoned industrial area that was overgrown and fenced off. But on further inspection, we realized that we were looking at an old Army munitions plant that had been repurposed as a wildlife and recreation area. The gate was open, and even better, we could pick up the Great Sauk Trail from the far side of the rec area. What a find! It was one of the most bizarre landscapes I've ever seen. About 10 miles down the path, we entered Prairie du Sac, which is an awesome mid-sized town that neighbors Sauk City. The Wisconsin River is dammed here and forms a wide, slow-moving section with beautiful beaches. The town also has a pleasant downtown strip. But by the time we got there, we knew we were going to be rolling into Madison after dark. I had already ridden the section from Madison to Sauk City twice in the previous month, so we decided to cover new ground and ride back to the car via Devil's Lake State Park, and we were glad we did. The park is maybe 5 miles across and is like a little slice of Olympic in Washington State with steep boulder-covered hills and leafy trails. If someone blindfolded you and dropped you next to the lake, you could easily think that you were sitting at 7,000 feet somewhere in the Cascades. I'm going to once again emphasize that the hills in this region should not be underestimated. But that said, the payoff at Devil's Lake was worth the effort. A realization has started to come into focus for me that fatherhood doesn't end when the kids grow up. Instead of me mostly imparting guidance and wisdom, I find that my boys and I are rapidly growing together in a way that could only be possible where the Holy Spirit is at work. I rode the section between Reedsburg and La Crosse from north to south in order to take advantage of a strong northwest tailwind. I started on the Bud Hendrickson Trail just on the east end of La Crosse, where on one side was a quiet neighborhood with cozy mid-century homes, and on the other side there was light industry. And right down the middle there was a trail and a rail yard. I really liked the hard-working Rivertown aesthetic of La Crosse. The trail wound through the east edge of town before meeting I-90, which it paralleled for the next 20 miles before meeting the Elroy-Sparta Trail. I stopped for a short time in West Salem, which had a nice little downtown and a park with public facilities. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw the Three Brothers Bat Company on the edge of town. Heading west, I passed by the U.S. Silica Company just west of Sparta, and I was impressed by the scale of the plant. In all, I found the La Crosse River Trail to be pleasant, with a few interesting sights, though there was at times a lack of variation. I quickly resupplied in Sparta and ate a snack by the river before heading southwest out of town. From the moment that I crossed I-90, I felt a change. The terrain became hillier and more heavily vegetated with ferns, almost like the Pacific Northwest, but with small limestone bluffs. The highlight of this trail, without a doubt, was Train Tunnel 3, just north of Norwalk. The tunnel was built in 1873 and is nearly a mile in length. 100 yards in, it becomes too dark to see without a bike light, and the temperature starts to feel like a cave. The sounds of the tunnel were oddly eerie. I stopped for the night at the Mid-Trail Motel in Wilton. It was a no-frills motel with just 4 rooms and thin walls, but it was clean and warm, and the beds were comfortable enough. The next day, I rode back to Reedsburg on the 400 State Trail. I found it to be a lightly used but exceedingly beautiful trail that passes through quaint towns every 10 miles or so. It was just outside of Wilton that I met Frankie. I'm changing his name to protect his privacy. Frankie was a friendly and outgoing guy with an unspecified developmental disability who was on a multi-day trip along the same trail system I was on. He was lacking adequate repair tools and was having trouble with noisy brakes. He was also uncertain about where he was going to stay that night. He was carrying a tent, and I assured him that there were a couple campsites not far ahead, but it was cold and wet. We parted ways at the next tunnel, which was very long and which he intended to walk, but it left me with a lingering sense that I should have done more to help him. I pray almost daily for the strength to represent Jesus, but I fail all the time, and I think I failed that day. I wish I was a better person. I wish I trusted people more. I wish I could stop thinking of time as mine or as something that I never have enough of, because neither is true. Someday I'll have unlimited time, and I hope Frankie is there to let me know that he got there just fine. I love La Crosse. It's a hard-working and historic town built right under the deep limestone bluffs of the Mississippi River. It has a vibrant and eclectic downtown that's built into regentrified, turn-of-the-century factories. There's an excellent community theater right on the banks of the river. It was there that Nathan and I once saw The Secret Garden, put on by a group of unbelievably talented people from all walks of life in the area. There's a wide variety of awesome restaurants and bars, and plenty of nice hotels within walking distance. For breakfast, be sure to visit Rosie's Diner for some good home cooking, right in the middle of a comfortable and interesting neighborhood. You can go for a drive down the Mississippi, or head a little further east on the Root River Trail to visit some of the many scenic small towns. From La Crosse, we once took a day trip to Decorah, Iowa to watch the Luther College football team play none other than St. Olaf. If you ever get to Decorah, be sure to stop at the Norwegian American Museum and then get a platter of Old Armory barbecue. You won't be disappointed.